As a 20-year-old winning that flag, I said to your brother actually, I said, how easy is this? You look back now and are there things I'd do differently? Yeah, absolutely. The best teammate, player-wise and just person, probably Adam Goods.
Heath,
How are you, mate?
AJ, how are you going, mate?
Going well. What's
Good
going on?
to see- No, not much, mate. Let's go for a little drive.
For a little cruise.
What was the last time I saw you? Was at Tomlinson's wedding? Bit happening since then.
Bit happening since then, yeah. I've become a father in the meantime, so it's
What did you have?
little
girl,
Ivy. So,
Ivy. That's exciting stuff.
She's 4 months, going pretty well.
Sleeping well.
Yeah, not too bad. I sleep
You?
pretty well. Yeah. Her mother does most of it. I'm pretty lucky with that. But,
So how was that experience? Like, I know I've talked to people, like obviously footballers all the time, they're having kids, but everyone's got different experiences around that. What was it like for you, like the day when Ivy was born?
it was pretty surreal, I suppose. My partner had a C-section, so it was all sort of pretty process driven. I'm not the greatest fan of hospitals, so I want to get out of there pretty quickly after.
You've had a bit of experience in hospitals for different reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're an experienced campaigner at hospitals. How many surgeries on the knee?
What are we? About 15 across both knees. So yeah, we
Gee
spent
whiz.
some time in hospital together once.
Yes, we did. So I can definitely see why you don't like hospitals that much.
Yeah.
And obviously finishing your AFL career and having so many surgeries, it probably didn't get to do what you wanted to do towards the end of your career. But are you still involved in footy now, and do you still love AFL or football in general?
Yeah, I do. I think it takes you a little bit of time to get over it. I suppose I finished up in 2018 and then got involved straight away, pretty much playing and coaching with the Northern Blues in the VFL there. Now I'm doing some stuff with the old Zabs in the VAFA down here, so I love it. I love the younger guys coming through. I love the development side of it, and I think I've found a real passion for coaching in the last probably 12 to 18 months. So yeah, that's sort of the direction I look likely to head in. But
Would you want to progress up further, like higher and higher, get to the top level? Would you like to go into a development role or even an assistant coaching role at AFL level down the track?
Yeah, potentially. I think that's something that a few years ago I probably said absolutely not.
Yeah.
But I like the challenge of it. I think the new age coach has changed as well. I think it's sort of less about football and more about human connection. I think that's something that I've got strength in, I suppose, going through adversity and figuring things out. So I think it is something that I will look to do down the track. But I'm enjoying doing the stuff at the moment. It's amateur level, so it's not full time or anything, and it's enough of a taste of what it is to coach.
Now, before I tell you actually what we're doing in this car at the moment, who was your probably the closest person you had in terms of like coaching? Because obviously you did spend a fair bit of time on the sidelines, and someone helping you get back through those knees and developing you as a young kid as well. Who was probably who had the biggest impact on your footballing career, and who you would probably follow in terms of the coaching side of things?
It'd have to be your brother, I think. I think Reece was unbelievable for me, particularly when I got to the club initially. Sort of took me under his wing a little bit and mentored me through. Showed me good and bad things to do throughout your career, which is always good. It's always about balance.
That's a good short trade.
Exactly right. So we got to know each other pretty well through mine and Reece's relationship. But to see what he did, and obviously he rose the ranks really quickly. Obviously what happened at North wasn't the ideal situation, and pressures around the club leadership and things obviously led to what happened there. But Reece was unbelievable for me, helping me get back, and he took over as development coach in my last couple of years, and I worked under him for a little while.
Yep.
And then he was defensive coach, assistant coach when I came back eventually, and played that game in quarter. So I got a lot of time for Reece, and he did a huge amount of mentorship for me, I suppose.
What are you doing with yourself now, AJ? Obviously footy is done. You've got the kid now. That's taken up most of your time. But what are you doing, sort of work-wise and all that? What have you been doing the last since you've finished footy?
I'm a house husband now, full time.
That's the dream.
Yeah. That's right. That is the dream, isn't it? So my missus has got her own business, and I just stay at home with the little one.
Do you help out with the business at all?
Yeah, do a little bit of stuff. I'm not much of a. It's a cookie shop she has in Hawthorn. Bake me, cake me. Nice little plug for it there.
Oh, nice.
So online cookie and cake store, and she's got the shop in Hawthorn. So
yeah.
I'm not much of a baker, but yeah, help out a little bit with the retail business development side of things, I'll call it.
Perfect.
But no, I had a gym for about 2 years, had an indoor cycling studio in Armidale, and recently moved that on a couple of months ago. Just, that industry's quite fickle. It was good fun for, I learned a hell of a lot being your own business and things like that. But I didn't see it it wasn't really going to be a long-term thing for me, and just saw an opportunity to get out. So I made that decision a few months ago. So
what potentially is on the horizon? Are you just going to sit back and be the house husband for a little bit longer and see what opportunities pop up?
I'd love to sit back and be the house husband forever if it worked out. It's quite good fun actually hanging out with the little one. But no, I think the coaching side of things is something that does interest me. So whether I look to take that full time next year or not, I'm just weighing up a few different opportunities at the moment, and I'll see where we go from there. But that's something that I think down the track will definitely sparks my interest. So I'll look towards that, I reckon.
Beautiful. So what I'm doing, I'm picking you up and we're going to go for a little cruise.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you somewhere and we're going to sit down.
Drive over bad.
We're going to sit down and we're going to have a nice chat about football, because football finals are coming up, and it's obviously the time of the year where it's most exciting and everyone wants to play finals and win grand finals. So I'm going to take you somewhere that's pretty close to home for me.
Yep.
And we'll sit down and have a little chat.
Beautiful.
Come in, mate. Screw your door.
This is a humble abode. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. This is the cellar.
There's plenty of problems solved down here, mate.
I can imagine.
Have a nice glass of red. Would you like one?
Love one.
Thanks for coming out, mate. Thanks. It's good to catch up with you, but it is finals time, footy finals time, and as I said before when we were in the car, that's why we play footy. Play in finals, and we play in grand finals. Winding back to when you were an 18-year-old and you got drafted to the Swans, what was going through your head? You're obviously a private school boy, a bit of a mummy's boy, having to go to Sydney, away from your family, away from sort of the AFL environment, and going up there to where it's NRL heartland. What were the thoughts that went through your head right at the start?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. It's one of the weirder employment opportunities you get. I suppose you find out on the TV where you're going and where your destiny lies. But as you said, a bit of a mummy's boy, so I didn't want to leave home. I ideally wanted to stay in Melbourne, just really comfortable here. But I think going to Sydney was the best thing for me.
Who'd you barrack for growing up?
Melbourne, so very private school. Yeah. But I hate Melbourne now. My old man and brother are Melbourne supporters, and I can't stand them.
Well, that's good. So you went up to Sydney. What was your first impressions of that club? Because obviously the Bloods culture, they had a lot of success coming through, probably around when you were getting towards just 15, 16, 17 years old. What was your first impression on that club?
Yeah, I think the best thing about the club now, and I think it took them a while to get there, Brett Kirk was a big instigator of this. He'd finished up the year before I got drafted, but tying it back to South Melbourne and what the Bloods actually meant, and I think the culture that they've built up there really tied back to the roots that they've got here. And I was at a function on the weekend actually that is about South Melbourne, and there's a massive supporter base down here. So I think that's the big thing, is just building that culture. They know where they've come from, hard yards up in Sydney initially, and then to build that success over a sustained period is pretty amazing.
And you didn't quite break onto the scene, but you played senior footy reasonably early on in your career. What did you bring that down to? What was it? Did you tack on the back of someone at pre-season, or did you look at someone and say, I want to get past them so I can get in the side? What was it that got you to go from being an 18-year-old getting drafted to, 2 years later, playing off in a grand final?
Yeah, I think for me, I was a late draft pick and I was probably 75 kilos when I got drafted, so I needed to put a bit of weight on. But I worked really closely with Craig Bolton my first pre-season. He ended up retiring before that 2011 year, and I went up there hampered by an ankle. I just had ankle surgery. So I sort of couldn't run, couldn't train. You can't really earn respect on the track initially. So yeah, I think it was just trying to do the hard work, worked with him closely, and then I got an opportunity really early. I got an opportunity in round 3, which I probably didn't think would come. And it was simple. I think the beauty of the Bloods culture is that you come in, you play your role, you'll get rewarded for that, and that's what I did. I didn't do anything special, but played that defensive sort of third tall role, and managed to keep my spot ever since.
You're pretty outgoing, and it's fair to say you're fairly loud. When you were injured throughout that first pre-season, was it naturally? Were you just doing that naturally? Were you like the person you were that got drafted and you are with your mates? Were you like that at the footy club, or do you have to sort of bide your time and and earn that respect of the players first before you can come and be that big character and loud class clown like you are?
Yeah, I think I don't think I said much for the first couple of months. I just wanted to put my head down and work hard, and I think that's the big thing, is trying to earn the respect. Whatever environment or organisation you walk into, you want to earn respect initially, and that's what I did. And then I think it was a few nights out with the boys.
Always helps
to break down
Christmas
those barriers.
parties, yeah.
Christmas party, we had a boat cruise, the famous boat cruise up in Sydney. So 40 blokes locked in a boat for 3 or 4 hours. It's always a good time, and you get to know each other pretty well. But I think just getting to know the boys on a different level rather than just the football side of things enables you to sort of get that real person and real you to shine. And then once I started playing, it's just natural for me to sort of talk, and I knew the game plan pretty well initially. I picked that up pretty early, and started demanding that of the guys around me, and I think that was another thing why I was able to stay in there.
And when you got drafted, who did you live with when you went up to Melbourne? Because I know when I went to the Giants, 95% of the people were from outside of Sydney. So you live with your teammates a lot of the time. Whereas if you had stayed in Melbourne, you probably would have stayed at home, have your schoolmates, and then you go to the footy club and you spend time with your teammates there. Who was the people that you lived with in the first couple of years, and were they the ones that helped you get through that pre-season of injury and then get into the senior side after that?
Yeah, I lived with a housing program up in Sydney. As you said, most people aren't from New South Wales. It's not AFL territory, so 90% of people are from outside. So I live with a guy by the name of Dan Curry, a crusher who big tall boy. Yeah, he was journeyman, absolute journeyman. I think it was 10 years or 11 years for 9 senior games across 3 clubs. So it's a bloody good effort, very persistent. And then Max Otten, a rookie who I'd grown up with. So I lived with those guys for a year. I wouldn't say they helped me get a senior game. Neither of them played AFL at Sydney, so that didn't help me too much. But I think going to school with Dan Hannabury, had been up there for a couple of years prior to me getting there, and then becoming pretty close with your brother, Kieran Jack, Craig Bird, these types that we sort of formed a pretty strong bond early, and I think those guys helped me along my way pretty quickly.
And Craig Bolton, obviously you tapped onto him in the pre-season, but who's someone who took you sort of under their wing and showed you the ropes of Sydney, whether it was on field or might have been off field and lurking around King's Cross a little bit? Who was the one who sort of took you under their wing and then showed you the ropes and helped you settle in Sydney in an easier way?
Yeah, I think Reece was huge for me, and then someone like Nick Malcheski was big as well in terms of the footy side of things. And then you're finding your own way in the cross. I spent probably too much time there early days, and then when the injuries came along, I spent even more time there. So it was it's a good way to see Sydney, but I think I always had that balance of sort of work hard on the track and then be able to enjoy yourself off it. And Sydney have a pretty good culture with that. Pre-season, sort of Monday to Friday, you get the weekend off and you can have a good time, which is
definitely a good balance. It's definitely a good way to do it, mate. Train hard and then you play hard. Yeah. Fast forward to 2012, you're a 20-year-old playing in the grand final. What was different about that team? What was the thing that got you to that grand final and eventually winning? What do you think was the key part to that team? I know you talked about the Bloods culture, but that could only take you so far. What was the sort of the key part of that team for that success to happen?
Yeah, I think trust was a massive thing. I think the team we came up against, Hawthorn, household names across every line really. Whereas with Sydney, unknown guys, I suppose, who were a bunch of nobodies that all came together and achieved something pretty amazing. So I think that the trust was massive, but then everyone was just willing to play their role to a T. And it's funny, I sort of think back on it now, and there's a lot of chat around Collingwood and they've lost 3 of the last 4 or whatever. Going into that final series, we lost 3 of the last 4. And we lost to Geelong pretty badly in the last round, I think by 5 or 6 goals. But we just knew what we needed to do, and we had belief in the system that we'd built and the processes were in place to get us to where we wanted to get to. Obviously, luck plays a big part on grand final day, but it was a really seesawing game that they probably got the jump on us, then we came back, and vice versa, a bit of a roller coaster throughout those 4 quarters. But I think that just everyone just buying in and guys played out of their skins. It's probably the best game I ever played at that level. So I think we just rose to the occasion really well, and we're lucky enough to be on the right end of it. Yeah,
there were a couple of names that probably not household names that played some unbelievable game on that grand final. Lewis Roberts-Thompson I think he was best on probably at half time.
Yeah.
Dan Hannanbury was obviously huge as well, and O'Keefe got the Norm Smith. But like looking at that time, is that what you miss now? Obviously, being away from AFL for a while now, is it finals? Is it big games like I know the derby's not that big in Sydney versus the Giants, but it's a big game playing at the MCG. What finals footy? What's the thing you miss the most about being involved in the AFL level?
Yeah, I think it is achieving those big things, and finals is obviously something that I was lucky enough to taste early on in my first year. We played a couple of finals, so got a bit of a taste of it, and then obviously second year go on and go the whole way. I think it's a collective group of guys getting together and achieving something pretty special. I think that's the thing that you do miss, the connection and the connection to the group and the connection to each other that you sort of build over a journey is the big thing. And yeah, I mean, there's no greater feeling than coming off a big win that, first 15, 20 minutes in the change rooms after, when it's just the 22 of you. It's pretty special, and it's probably the hardest thing to replace.
Yeah. It's good. I think they say, like, even after a grand final, like the reunions are the best part, but the hour or 2 hours after that, when you're just sitting around with your family, your friends, your teammates, is the best thing, because you get to understand what you just achieved and how you got there. For you personally, like that day, obviously you would have had your family and all that there. What was it like after the game? Like, obviously you're celebrating with your teammates, but as soon as you get in the change rooms, mum, dad, like who was there?
They weren't there.
They weren't.
So we had a dinner, and they didn't come down to the rooms because they were like, we better get home and get to the dinner. And I was like, anyway, so that's probably a big regret they've got. And I had a few
to go get the hair and makeup done.
Yeah, and I had some mates that I hadn't seen in years that were even in the rooms, and my own parents weren't even in there. That's a big regret from theirs. But I think just...
So you were just getting around everyone else's parents?
Exactly right, yeah. Looking for mum and dad like a lost school kid. But I think that initial hour or two after is, it's unbelievable to sort of spend time out in the ground. We didn't go back out, which I sort of wish we did. I think I think what Geelong did last year, they didn't have a function to go to. I think that's probably the better way to do it, because then organically you can just... I mean, it's going to be the greatest night of your life regardless whether you go to one of those functions or not. So I think that was something that I would have liked to have done, is just go out. There's no better place in the world than the MCG when it's completely empty and it's yours. So to do that after would be pretty special. But it was amazing. It's just a blur, I suppose, and then the next week after that's pretty much a blur as well.
I was going to say, even more of a blur.
Absolutely.
And we are in my wine cellar, and there is a picture up here of...
what's that picture?
As a lady painted this for me, and she gave me one. I thought it was one of 2, but apparently you just pointed out it's one of 12.
She sold out of 10.
But it's the moment that I'm remembered for is the smother on Reebok in the grand final. In that grand final, in that 2012 grand final, what was one moment that stood out for you? Because like everyone has the different... It might not have been you, it might have been something that someone else did, but everyone sort of remembers the grand final for different sort of things. What was yours?
I think me personally, I sort of had a reasonable start to the game, and I think that was good. I played on Jack Gunston, and he sort of didn't get near it when I was there. So that sort of, I do remember that. But the big thing for me was Malcheski's goal. And I mean, most Sydney supporters would remember it, but I was right behind him when he kicked it, and we knew there was...
He didn't hit it that well, did he?
No, not well at all. It was sort of second or third handball out of a stoppage, but it floated through. I mean, his first goal floated through as well.
Yeah. And it was a beautiful kick.
Beautiful kick. Obviously not a great snap, because both of them were snaps and they just floated through. But running back, we just locked eyes, and it was like, we've won this. We're up by 10 points, and there was less than a minute to go. So you sort of knew. So to be able to savour that minute was pretty special. We knew that nothing else could happen that was untoward. And then I had the last kick of the game as well. So got the ball in my hands and just...
Tuck it under the shirt and run away with it?
I was going to get tackled, I reckon, but I just threw it on the boot. I don't know where it ended up, but I just knew as soon as I hit it, the siren went, and that was it. So, yeah.
And the rest is a blur.
The rest is a blur, exactly right.
Yeah. Well, the Swannies, they've been in, I think, 3 grand finals since that, and haven't won one. Last year...
I'm the missing link.
Maybe you are. You probably are. And Malcheski floaters.
Yeah, that's right.
Last year, they obviously made the grand final and got flogged. And then this year start off really slow. They're sort of treading water, but then have found a bit of form. Like, what have you seen of them this year? And what do you think maybe the 2012 team, this team now, is there any similarities to this team that's playing at the moment?
Yeah, I think what they've done is incredible. Really, they've defied all the odds to get flogged by close to 100 points in that grand final against Geelong last year, and then make finals this year. It's been really impressive. I thought it would have affected the young kids more than it has, but I think, you've got guys that have come in, like Chad Warner was effectively best on in that grand final in a losing side last year. And then, guys like Errol Goulden, Braden Campbell, Tom McCartan's become a really solid defender. And then the senior guys, like having Dane Rampy playing obviously helps a lot, missing him early, and Luke Parker still running around, someone I got drafted with. But I think it seems like they just believe, and they're starting to win close games as well, although the weekend was quite controversial. It's just a little bit. But I think to win those close games, I think is a massive thing. That's what Collingwood was doing earlier in the year, and they've sort of dropped away from that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how far Sydney can go.
Is that a culture thing? Like it's the Bloods culture thing? Just believing in the process, trusting the process, or is it a confidence thing? Because obviously getting flogged in a grand final is never a good thing because there's no next week. You have to wait sort of 8 months.
Yeah.
So, or is it a combination of all that? And they just back, like I said, they back their system in, but they have confidence that they will get there, and in the tough games and the close games that they'll get the job done if they just stick to the process.
Yeah, I think so. I think
and Horse has been there for a long time as well, and he sort of the message. No doubt, he would just keep repeating the same sort of message.
Yeah,
and it's consistent to those younger guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think winning becomes a habit, and being able to hold on in close games is something that you can't just learn overnight. It sort of becomes off the back of a process and off the back of a system, but it can take 1 or 2 weeks. I mean, you look at what the Dogs did in 2016, got together, and obviously what they achieved was pretty special, coming from 6th or 7th on the ladder to actually go the whole way, albeit against us in that final. It wasn't the ideal situation.
But the prelim wasn't any good either.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Sure. But you look at what Carlton are doing now as well. They've built that too, built the confidence, built the belief in each other, and they've got ultimate trust that they can go out and get jobs done. And it seems like that's what's happened. So it's it's been a pretty interesting season so far, and I think the finals will be just even more added to that.
Now, we touched on, that's all the on-field stuff. We touched on in the car about your injuries and your surgeries and how many you had.
Yeah.
And the frustration that you would have had around that, because you got the taste, you got your premiership early days, and you think, this is easy. I'm going to be doing this for 10 years plus.
Yeah.
And then one injury, and then work your way back, another one. How would that take its toll? Obviously, the toll it took on your body, but on your mind to come back and just keep coming back. Because honestly, I don't know how I would have gone with a long-term knee injury. My attention span's like that much, and watching footy's not great for me. How did you continually back up after so many surgeries, after so many setbacks, and then leave the game, and now you want to get back involved in it and you love it so much? How did you do that? Like honestly, how did you find the will to do that and come back?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I sort of think about it now. If I had to go through it again, I probably wouldn't be able to. But it was just setback after setback, and you sort of get little wins along the way. And it's funny you sort of say that. As a 20-year-old winning that flag, I said to your brother, actually, I said, how easy is this? And he's like, it's taken me 9 years to get back here. Shut up, these aren't easy to win. And I was like, so sort of having that perspective on things, I suppose, is interesting from a senior guy. But for me, it was just, I don't know, I was just doggedly determined to get back and play, and didn't take no for an answer from a lot of surgeons. I got delisted along the process and had to fight for a contract a couple of times with Sydney. I was really lucky they kept me on the books. They kept me involved. I think off field I brought in a lot, brought a lot of the cultural side of things, and enjoyed the social aspect of it, and forming those relationships off the field. So I think with that and with maturity as I went through it, my first injury was at a week after being 21, and then I didn't play again until I was 26 or 25. So you sort of, you go through a huge amount of setbacks and ups and downs, and the mental toll is massive. I don't think it probably didn't take its toll straight away. It was probably more after, when I came out of the game, and then, you sort of decompress from everything and have time to think and, stop and think about what actually happened and what went on.
Did you get angry at the fact that you kept having setbacks? Did you question like the club or the doctors and the physios, and you probably went through a few surgeons as well, a few different surgeons? Were you questioning, were you angry with that whole process? Did you think like that maybe because you were a young kid, you just sort of nod your head and say yes, you trust in like the doctors and what they're saying, but maybe they actually could have done a bit more for you? Yeah,
definitely. I think me as some people around me would describe me as a bit of a control freak, and when you can't control things, it becomes very frustrating.
You're not a doctor.
Not a doctor.
Okay.
I tried to do surgery a couple of times. I thought about it. I was like, maybe I'll do a better job than these idiots. But you're putting your trust in other people, and you're getting world-class advice on what to do, and different. I had an infection that underpinned a lot of surgery, so different infectious disease doctors and different surgeons. All these people are putting their sort of spin on things and what they think is the best course, and you're sort of deciding from there. So it is a lot to take on as a young kid, as a sort of 21, 22-year-old, and you're making these decisions that could impact your future going forward. At the time, I didn't really look at it like that. I just looked at it, whatever I can do to get back and play. That's all I want to do, as quick as I can. But it's you look back now, and are there things I'd do differently? Yeah, absolutely. But hindsight's a beautiful thing. There are things I'd do differently in all aspects of my life, and I'm sure everyone's like that. And if you sort of spend your time dwelling on those things, you're never going to move forward. So it is what it is. I'm really content and really proud of my career and what I was able to do. And it took me a while to get there. I was always sort of angry and comparing to other guys and things like that. So to get to a point where I'm pretty happy, and there's not many guys that can sit here and say they're premiership players, so I'll always have that.
Well, there's two. Yeah.
Well, there's two. Yeah, there is two. Yeah, absolutely. But there's not many times you can be in company of people that have done that. So it's a pretty special thing, and I think finals for me are always it's always a pretty special time to be able to reflect a little bit. I'll try and get to the grand final most years. Always did as a kid, and this sort of Melbourne at finals time is unbelievable. So it's a pretty special time of year.
And it's a wide open race. You played with Buddy. You played against Buddy.
Yep.
And then you played with him, obviously superstar of the competition. What were your first impressions of Buddy when he got to the Swans? Because obviously when you're playing against him, you're just thinking, please
don't kick a bag on me.
Yeah, don't kick five, don't kick. But when he got to the club, was it like, now I don't have to worry about him, that's number one, but he's come to this club because he wants success as well, but he's an actual superstar. What were the first impressions of him?
Yeah, I think just how, he's just a normal bloke, and he's pretty sort of quietly spoken until you get to know him. He's sort of quite a shy character. He doesn't do much in the media or anything like that. He's always, kept to himself, I suppose, but he's just a freak in terms of on-field talent. It's unbelievable, really. He's probably the best field kick I've seen, training and things like that, and everyone talks about his goal kicking, but at the end of the day, he still kicked 1,000 goals. So
it's pretty impressive. Shots too, yeah.
Well, he's probably had 5,000 shots, but who cares at the end of the day? The fact that he's been able to have that many shots, and I think his inaccuracy definitely helped us in 2012. I think he kicked 6 or 7 points that day, and we were very lucky. 12 shots at goal, and 5-6 or 5-7 or something. So we were on the receiving end of good fortune with that, but. Yeah, just a star of the game. Probably the greatest there's ever been. I wasn't, I'm not that old to know what Gary Ablett was like and guys of that era, but in modern day footy, he's hands down the best player. Yeah. Match winner off his own boot. Unbelievable.
On the back of that, a couple of quick ones. Toughest opponent you've played on? You were the third tall defender. You probably get the third best forward most of the time, so you've got other guys looking after you, That's Buddy and the big dogs. Yeah. Toughest opponent you've played on?
It'd have to be my first game, and it was on Quinton Lynch. And
the big Q stick. Oh, how good.
But it was simply because he was probably 20 kilos heavier than me. Yeah. And, I didn't have much experience.
Peak of his powers.
Peak of his powers with the glove. Yeah. So never dropped anything, but I think he kicked 4 in that first half of my first game. And I thought, this is good. That's my AFL career done.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Great start.
We ended up winning that next week.
Yeah, exactly. We ended up winning that game by a couple of goals over the old Subiaco. I'd say just because of the circumstances, he's probably the toughest.
And the best teammate. It can be in terms of talent-wise, or just the best teammate you had when you're at the Swans.
Yeah, I think the best teammate, player-wise and just person, probably Adam Goods, I'd say. Just in terms of what he did, dual Brownlow medalist, 2-time premiership player, 50 All Australians probably.
Yeah. In every position on the ground.
Yeah, exactly right. But a bloke to play in the modern game, centre half forward, centre half back, and ruck. That's what he did at different times of his career. He was
injured during the grand final too, wasn't he?
100%. On one leg towards the end of that. Someone like that, he's a unbelievable player, an unbelievable figure, and it's sort of a shame that he's been lost to footy a little bit based on circumstances that happened towards the end of his career. But he'll go down as one of the greats.
Beautiful. Thanks, mate. I appreciate you sitting down with me and having a wine and having a bit of a chat. Obviously, the footy final's coming up. It's an exciting time, and the Swannies are in now, and no doubt there'll be a few teams that are a little bit worried about them come the first final as well. So, again, thank you very much. It's a great story, and good luck with the future and those coaching ambitions at the high level or at whatever level you want to be.
Beautiful. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.